Welcome back to the Bravo stream, ladies and gentlemen. It is just about time for us to get ready for our next matchup here. SANDBOX going up against Heroic. It's going to be the bottom two teams in this group, so both teams looking for their first point. One of them is obviously going to be walking away with it, but for SANDBOX, it's kind of needed at this point for them. They've had a bit of a rough run so far, only 5 rounds collectively between the first 2 games they have played so far versus Heroic, who have had literally the same result, interestingly enough, come out of their 2 games. 5 rounds with the same coefficient between their attack and defensive rounds as well, so it's been a bit of a weird tournament for Heroic so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say Heroic, although with these 2 teams in mind, definitely have the edge in this matchup. SANDBOX, I mean, they've been expecting better results, but it seems like they've always been expecting better results when it comes to their majors, and they haven't been able to strike the iron while it's hot, John, and it's happening here again. But the big thing is they played against some very stiff competition yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely the case, going up against the best inside of the group, but once again, you can say very much the same thing about Heroic as well, who was able to contend pretty nicely, though, and still be able to pick up 5 rounds in both of those matchups. Really only falling apart for me on Heroic's side on their attacking rounds. That's where you're starting to see a little bit more of an issue. Playing some bit more complex maps to be able to kind of rotate into for their attacks as well, so we started to see some problems popping up there, but I think things are going to be turning around against SANDBOX for me. Personally, it's really SANDBOX that we're looking at that needs to see the most improvement for this matchup if they're going to be getting points on the board from this game specifically.
Absolutely the case, my friend. Heroic, and specifically Uno Meister from yesterday, still having a pretty impressive showcase, able to try and pick up the pieces that were crumbling around him and still finding some semblance of success. They're not able to get one in the win category here just yet, but that could be changing. The time has come to play up against SANDBOX, which, again, did not have the greatest day yesterday. NV Taylor playing quite well, but just couldn't get it done up against Liquid and TSM. They now face Heroic, obviously. Here is our percentages for who could potentially close things out and make it to our main stage in Jönköping.
Yep, 96% and 95% for Liquid and TSM respectively here, so both of them looking very, very good, of course, even with these wins coming in for either one of these teams. But at the same time, it's Heroic and SANDBOX that need to be improving their odds here. As you can see, both teams are looking at a very, very tough chance to be able to make it through if they end up with a regulation loss or an overtime loss. In fact, it's 3% for SANDBOX and 6% for Heroic, so not looking very good at all there. If they get the win here outright, though, especially inside of regulation, that bumps their chances up pretty good. They've got about a quarter shot either way. If either one of these teams is able to close it down in regulation. For overtime, that makes it a little bit riskier once again because it does diminish that extra point away from your score. Only going to be getting 2 points for the win instead of the full 3, so it makes it a little more difficult to catch up to those opponents, still sitting with 6 points at the top of the group right now.
Yeah, and that's really the problem. That one of these teams has to break one of those Titans, and that's going to be really hard fought. The good news is those Titans clash later on today. Team Liquid and TSM have a match here on day 2 of groups, and let me tell you, I'm pretty excited for that one. But let's focus on what we have going on over here. SANDBOX versus Heroic. This is it for SANDBOX. We have to see them try and hit their stride here against Heroic. And, I mean, how are you feeling about this South Korean squad?
Yeah, I mean, let's be real, it just hasn't looked that great so far at this event. We've seen good results in the past from them. We've seen them be able to contend quite nicely when they've made it to these lands before, but at the moment, as of again, day 1, so giving them a bit of a harsh judgment right now of only 1 day's play. But that first day, just not looking too promising. You already mentioned it as well. The worst round differential at the moment inside of this land among all of the teams that we have here. So definitely going to be looking to improve upon that today. Let's hope they had a nice reset yesterday. And the fact they're going up against Heroic today, which again is going to be that other weaker team in the group right now, gives them that little bit of a confidence boost to hit the ground running here and make sure they get a good start going into this matchup.
Yeah, a Lagonis-powered Liquid might do that to you. That's all I'm going to say. So we're getting the players in now, folks, so don't worry about it. We will have the action on your screen as soon as we have the game going here. We're just, again, waiting on some players to hop in here. Looks like we might have some PC trouble going on, so we'll make sure the ESL staff gets on that so we can get Heroic and specifically Uno, the man of the day yesterday for Heroic, on in.
Absolutely the case. There's going to be plenty to discuss in this matchup as well. For Heroic as well, looking to improve on a lot of things. Their attack game is going to be the focus here. We're seeing some problems with them getting tied up more than anything due to the early roam game presence that defenders were throwing out. Should, I think, have a little bit of an easier time at that. SANDBOX tends to play things a little bit more back, not too wild out in front, trying to get those early kills in that first minute or so. Tends to generally respect the opening clear from their opponents from what I've been able to see so far. And I think the map, which you guys will be finding out pretty soon what that is going to be, will play a little bit more nicely into Heroic, not having to deal with a lot of aggression in the early round as well here. Gives them a bit more of a straightforward play style to go into this matchup with, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that when it comes down to SANDBOX's play style and kind of the region that you look at, it's very aggressive, very free-flowing, and that can get you into a little bit of trouble, you know, especially when it comes to playing international competition where a lot of these upper echelon regions are really good at stopping you from doing exactly what you want to do in a play style like that. We did see that kind of come into the hand of Fury yesterday, though, with some of the stuff that they were pulling out of APAC South up against BDS, caught them off guard a couple of times, but at the end of the day, we saw how that one went, didn't we?
Speaking of the maps, we do have them up on the screen now, ladies and gentlemen, and the map veto has eventually come down to Border as the chosen map between these two teams. It's going to be Heroic on the attacking side. SANDBOX will be on the defensive side as well. It's really going to test the mettle of Heroic right off the bat. Hopefully they are up for the challenge of being able to clear things out here. SANDBOX will be having to put their best defensive foot forward here. What do you think of the choice of Border going into this matchup, Sticks?
Oh, you know, I think it's going to be pretty hotly contested. Border, a very small map, so I think it definitely plays in the hand of SANDBOX here. I like that they are more than likely going to be on defense here as soon as we get everybody in. Everybody's bouncing around the screen right now, actually, as again, we're waiting on some people to get into the lobby. But, you know, if everything is right here, which I assume that it is, SANDBOX is more than likely starting on defense, and that should, I assume, help them out quite a bit. Border is a map that has quite an in-depth strategy to it now, which is pretty awesome. We've seen a lot of teams experimenting with these top floor holds, you know, pressuring out, putting reinforcements in different areas and creating new lines of sight to make it to where the entire map feels very, very contested. So we'll see if Heroic can try and work around this puzzle that will be presented to them from SANDBOX.
Absolutely the case. You can see the teams getting together for their last hurrah right now. Mr. Officer, of course, rallying the troops over on Heroic, bringing it back, showing these guys just how important this matchup is. This is a really must-win matchup for both of these teams, and we'll be paying very close attention to the head-to-head matchup between the two teams that are at the top of this group right now as well, so that they can find a valid target to try and make sure that they can take down, as one of those two teams at the top is also going to be falling behind a little bit today, making them the next target for whoever ends up pushing ahead from this matchup further into third. It's a pretty straightforward group so far, but things could get quite chaotic today depending on the result of this one, as well as the matchup between the top two teams in the group here. So just a few moments away now from getting things started, folks, on Border. Hope you are going to be sticking with us throughout the rest of this matchup, but of course still plenty more games to go throughout today and tomorrow as well to round out our groups.
Absolutely. So let's get this out of the way early on here. If you're not using the squad stream to watch both A and B at the same time, you are messing up. Click that button, watch both streams, make sure you have all the Siege content that you can intake with your eyeballs, as we're going to be jumping into this one very soon. So John, we got to talk about Heroic a little bit more before we jump into this and kind of the discrepancy between Uno and the rest of his squad. Uno's sitting at a 1.25, but then things kind of fall off a cliff. We talked about Joom yesterday when you and I ended up casting their game.
Yeah.
He had some very impressive rounds, but overall across the board of that game, he just wasn't hitting his mark on a round-to-round basis. It was really, you know, a fire and fizzle kind of a thing, and it ended up at a 0.99 for him on the first day.
And we saw that be pretty much identical to what ended up happening in the first matchup, too, against TSM there, where he had very similar results going into that matchup. Uno is still very much that lock-in consistency player at the moment here. So who is going to be grouping up? Who is going to be stepping up to the plate alongside Uno to add that extra clutch element into these matches that unfortunately seem to be missing from the day one matchups? Once again, it's not the end of the day for Heroic. I'm expecting personally some pretty good results for them to come out of this matchup, and as well, hopefully someone else to step up. Milo as well, I think, had some good rounds every once in a while, just didn't really show that well inside of the stats, so hopefully we get a little bit more activity from him as well. As you can see here, once again, Mr. Officer, the great support staff and coach as well for the squad, coming in just to hype these boys up one final time before we get ready to rock and roll.
Well, exciting times here, ladies and gentlemen, as we are just moments away from getting into this game. We've got everybody in the lobby, and we are set and ready for war here on Border. Always one of the funnest maps to cast, and especially when we get to LAN, action-packed from start to finish, and that's not something we usually have in Rainbow Six. A lot of the time we're droning early on, we're taking our time getting into the building, and just making sure that you kind of have that ground initially. And it's not that they won't be doing that, it's just that the contention from the defense comes very fast, very furious on Border. They, like we were talking about earlier, like to extend those reinforcements out, play that whole building, and make it really difficult for the offense to try and crack this egg.
have to be careful for SANDBOX as well, make sure they don't end up getting split up. This is a map that relies very heavily on the defenders' setups, not necessarily outright aggression that defenders are able to throw out through the room, but more the complexity of the setup and how those extensions may be able to work off of each other and potentially trade off of each other as well to kind of over-confuse the attackers as they try to take that control away from themselves. But either way, it should just be a minute or two from starting the match, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're excited for this matchup as we are as well. We have got plenty to get through here today, and we have to settle out who is still in contention for this group and who, after this game, will be really, truly fighting for survival in a must-win situation from this point forward. Whoever loses this game has to be essentially perfect, and even then, that will not guarantee their exit from the group. Possibly second, but we'll have to see how these other teams do as well, and a potential fall-off may need to be seen from one of those higher-level teams.
Yeah, and that really is the issue, isn't it? TSM and Liquid really do look indomitable up against their lower half opponents, and we're going to need to see one of them catch a light, catch a fire, and hopefully it hits them in the belly so they're able to try and take it up against those squads later on. But either way, looks like we're about a couple of seconds out here, ladies and gents. Mr. Officer again. I mean, the guy's just carrying the vibes for Heroic. Always is. Very happy, chipper guy. Every single time I talk to him, always a very good interaction.
Yeah, absolutely the case, ladies and gentlemen. So, once more, just a few seconds away. We've got plenty more games coming up after this one as well. Plenty more excitement to be seen here, both on the A stream as well as the B stream. With these games coming up around the corner here, we're going to be looking to see some good ones following it over on the A stream as well. If you guys are interested in that one, it is the big matchup on the other side of this group, and we're going to be paying very close attention to those results. We were talking about how a lot of it plays into this matchup too, so make sure you are peeping it every once in a while over on the A stream as TSM and Liquid will be playing each other over there.
Hit that squad stream button. Hit the button right now on your Twitch so you can watch both of those streams. If you're not seeing it on B, go over to our main stream on twitch.tv/Rainbow6, and the button should be prompted on there. That's how I was watching some things yesterday when you and I were sitting in the airport. It's just the best way to view any major, really, when they have that kind of thing going on. So either way, exciting times to be a Siege fan, especially with how much action we have left today. Is there any other match you're looking forward to on here, John?
Oh, we'll have to see, because we got a little bit. Oh, yeah, Sonics versus them. We're not going to be on that one, unfortunately. That's going to be the other pair for this stream that's going to be jumping in to cast that one.
Womp, womp. That's our break time. We don't get to have the fun. I mean, we get to have the fun here on Border, and guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It starts now. Let's see who can cross this fence, who can try and beat each other and hopefully beat their opposition later on down the line to try and make it out of this group that has been pretty fiery so far. It's SANDBOX versus Heroic here on Border.
Let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. The social vote, pretty close there, but definitely a lot of you at home favoring Heroic, and I would generally tend to agree going into this matchup. Let's see, though, if SANDBOX was able to rally themselves after the unfortunate results from yesterday and focus up to rebound. Definitely looks like they're in good spirits off of what we were seeing from them on the desk, just kind of come into this one with a good attitude today, and so far I would say is the case. Interesting bans to start things out, though. Ying making perfect sense for Border, of course, but the Dokkaebi being quite interesting. Again, though, aligns very well with the type of play we tend to see on Heroic from the defenders. That can be a pretty hard counter towards it, so it makes perfect sense for this situation to ban that back out. Valkyrie as well, just due to the amount of places we have for her cameras to be deployed towards. She's going to be a pretty common ban here. And then finally, a Pulse is the final one as well. Once again, very map-specific bans coming out here, at least as far as I can see.
Yes, indeed. Not too much Doke play coming out of SANDBOX yesterday. Both of their matches didn't have somebody that was maining it more than another op, but might have slipped through the cracks. We didn't exactly get to have the best viewership experience yesterday with all of our travel. Yeah. So, but either way, Doke could be an amazing ban when it comes down to it. She's just so good for droning on a map like Border that's so unbelievably tiny. Those logic bombs can mean the most. But for the rest of the bans, like you're saying, it just makes a lot of sense. It's Border. Things like Pulse and Valkyrie, good info game as well as, execution utility like Ying. Those are all going to be highlights of a map like this.
All right, well, going into the first round, no surprises in terms of the initial site pick from SANDBOX. And the same very much can be said for the operator choice as well. Lots of utility going to be coming out here over the course of this round that Heroic will need to pay very close attention to, from the frost mats on entry, of course, going over to the electric claws blocking their path, those laser gates that are going to need to be eating up a lot of attacker utility. Hopefully we have a couple flashes in the kit. Should be definitely a few of those to be able to chuck into that. And if not, you can always throw a drone. And then, obviously, when you get to the plant situation, you still have the echo drones to deal with coming out from SANDBOX as well. So this is going to be a very annoying composition for Heroic to get through the full picture with.
Yeah, operator lineup wise, this is pretty beautiful. I like the frost mats, love the Oryx, you know, keep them guessing on where you could potentially come from and makes them have to manage those hatches. So the good news though is Heroic has a lot of means in order to accomplish this. We have air jabs, we have Lion in play, and we even have Yana, so we can make things a little bit easier for the drone game as well. So Heroic now out and about, and like we were talking about in our prep, looks like Border always leaning into that early aggression. Here we're gonna go from Joom, gonna take a little bit of damage. He'll take a little bit of his own, but Heroic will at least be able to try and muster east side here. It's going to be an EMP out as Heroic is fighting for the office, and they'll get that exothermic off.
They're going to be able to get that access in for themselves, be able to take some office control to start out this round. Heroic won't be able to carve forward off of that. Stacking the rest of SANDBOX, though, not overstepping their own bounds just yet, not overreacting to that, trying to get super aggressive into the way of Heroic. We already saw a few shots ringing true onto Joom a few moments prior. They definitely want to wait for these trap setups if they can deploy towards them at all. But Heroic showing a similar amount of caution as they have been throughout the rest of this event so far. EE1D charge goes out. Don't believe they're going to get any hugely useful information out of it. Unfortunately, most of SANDBOX is pretty locked into bunker positions at the moment. You can see there by Archives, the Fountain as well. Heroic is going to have to take a risk in order to try and take these players out. So to be seeing them put quite a bit of delay into their own chase as they play pretty heavily into their drones before they can justify that type of swing.
Now, they do not want to overplay their hand. They're giving SANDBOX the respect that they deserve as Static is going to get the first big kill. Joom will quickly follow it up with a frag grenade, though, and will actually take out Static. Heroic has found control over Fountain, and by proxy, also Archives. This plant about halfway down until it'll get stopped. Joom, with some nice shots, he'll take down Good Boy, and it's up to 2 now after he takes out Rukaze. It's going to be down to Uno Meister trying to put this plant down. Sayal has an opportunity to hold the cross, but there is so many bodies inside of this area for Heroic. Oh, very well played from Joom. It's a quad kill for him, and the ace potentially. It'll be an ace for Joom on the first round. We said he was popping off on a couple of rounds yesterday when we got to view him, but he's starting here strong today.
A statement to be made for sure here, and definitely puts SANDBOX back into a corner. Nicely played by Joom, specifically from Heroic there, bullying his way into the inside of the office and Archives as well, and then moving himself even further into the site to pick up the remaining 3 players that were defending things out by Locker. Beautifully played there, and a nice way to start things out. Like you said, Joom, not necessarily always there, but when he is there, he's absolutely omnipresent in knocking out these players from SANDBOX in this situation. So beautifully done there to start. 5-0 coming out of the first round here. To see 0-0-0s for the rest of the team. Obviously, a few assists coming in there along the way as well, but for the most part, we are going to see it all be dominated by Jumi. And now, the response needs to be seen from SANDBOX. How exactly do they play against this now? How do they get into the way of it on the next round? Not going to see, for as far as I can tell, the reattempt. Actually, it does look like they are going to go for hold stairs this time. Just trying to get final confirmation of that, as this will be an interesting setup to be seen from them. As actually, yeah, we'll be over here towards Tellers, making a lot more sense now that we get full vision on that here. The operator lineup will change on Heroic to account for that, mainly just in the form of the hard breach being swapped out for Uno, but we are also going to see the Flores come out from Grizzly as well, so they have further access to the interior of the site to take on any pesky utility.
I love what we're seeing from SANDBOX here. Stack the utility tall and force Heroic to clear all of it. Heroic's timing was decent on that last round, and they were really able to abuse that timer for kind of the mid game, get those drones in there after they get the office opened up and kind of have those entry points that they want to use. They back that up with that info game, and it works extremely well. SANDBOX attempting to pull that away from them with the Mute Mozzie combo. Also, Arukaze able to bring in the castle as well. So this castle barricade is going to be around. So gonna have to get rid of those with the Rotero drones out of Grizzly. We'll see how many of those he wants to dedicate. They do have a lot of soft breach here on Heroic, so that should be a fairly straightforward affair.
As long as we don't see any early shenanigans from SANDBOX meet good fruition, Heroic is once again in a fantastic position to set themselves up to clear all this utility. Goodbye, though, with a nice Nitro cell from below, at least picks up the trade for the earlier loss. It's Sayal that goes down from SANDBOX. Benja is lost from Heroic. Benja's loss, arguably a much bigger deal. Obviously, Sayal just a kind of generic roamer on the Oryx over there, so when he goes down, it would have been nice to exchange a kill out beforehand, but not the end of the world that he doesn't. Time wasted is still a nice thing to take home, but Benja losing the sledge here could become problematic for this squad here, as they now are only going to be reliant on Melo to be able to knock out any form of soft breach deeper into this site. And we're seeing that now. Static ready to take on this next challenge. He takes out Melo as well, leaving no soft breach remaining on this squad.
Static stalwart in his office position. Joom, he'll have to do something about it. The man with the ace, all the kills the last round, and he's got another one. 2 inside of this, both of them. Looks like Joom's a one-man army as Heroic is falling down around him. He still has Uno as well with him. We saw just how lethal Uno was yesterday. Arukazi will fall back into sight. They've spread themselves out on this bottom floor, and this could be an issue presented to Heroic. Do they know that the majority of SANDBOX is actually rotated away? Joom is going to second guess for Heroic as he'll drone in here and try and cover all of these bases. Wants to make sure that they do not get caught off guard when they do go for this. And they have so much time remaining in this 3 versus 3, so better to measure twice and cut once.
You're marking the lucky 7-0-0 right now as well. The reverse secret agent. Let's see if you can push this envelope just a little bit further as the plant attempt coming in. You'll notice, though, these positions are not very well supported, so Uno going to second guess himself and go for the secondary plant position instead of full committing, and it's a good thing he did as well. The spam coming in. Oh, he's literally drawing an outline around him. Envy Taylor eventually gets the kill from another player, actually, but it won't matter. Joom picking up another frag for himself. Needs to support the plant as Uno now been lost. It's Joom versus the world, and look at this post-plant position. It's perfectly set up for him to just spray through the floor. SANDBOX are going to have to wrap against him here and catch him on a timing play. Will he be expecting it, though? The shots come out. Joom knows that someone is going to be upstairs. No, the shot's coming through. He's been given an early warning. He's allowed to fall back deeper to the outside and potentially hop back down and just play this on the first floor. Look at this. Dodges out of the way. First plant counter defuse attempt comes back in. He's got an 8 primer ready to go. There's no way this gets both. Okay, gets the quad again. Is this a double ace from Joom? It might very well be, but no! The denial comes in from Arukaze, but it won't matter. There's not enough time. The clutch goes to Heroic and Jume for the second round.
SANDBOX doing the most to try and bring that round back into their favor, but Joom is indomitable right now. You can't do anything up against him. 9 kills through 2 rounds. Oh my, I do believe that that is more kills than we saw him get yesterday in that cafe game. In between just those 2 rounds, he had, I believe, 8 kills at the very tail end of that one yesterday. Yeah. Might have had a little bit more.
7 in the first 2, and then or no, that was the other game I think we were talking about. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was just one of those rounds where, or one of those games where he had like,
it was hot to start, and then it kind of fell off a little bit.
Exactly. I really hope this isn't the same thing. I hope he isn't good for 2 rounds and then just falls off a cliff.
Either way, this is frustrating as heck for SANDBOX to play into right now because they just cannot seem to take this player down or at minimum best him inside of a clutch scenario as we saw inside of the 1v1 there at the end. Joom playing it perfectly as well. What a great waste of time as well here. Could have easily just gone for the glory inside of the 1v2, taking the duels outright, but says, nah, I'm not going to stick around this upstairs because I know they can very easily box me out if I decide to stick around here. I'm going to try to waste even more time, hop outside, make these guys waste time figuring out where I went, then even go downstairs as well to pull it off again. Great reads from SANDBOX to do pretty much the entire time where he was rotating to and fro, but regardless, was not able to best him due to the positions that Joom specifically decided to play into there.
Yeah, actually that was that game up against Liquid yesterday. They lost 7-5 on Theme Park. Joom had 10 kills, while Uno had 11 on that one. And Uno also playing pretty hard support when it comes to Theme Park. He was a Therm smoke main for that, and also had the most frags. That's not usually something that you see every day. So Heroic looking like they're starting off strong here on border, although they'll be lacking hard breach. Well, at least part of it here for their overall lineup. Grizzly going down early on into this customs offense.
Joom with the first trade and continuing to impress us here at the moment.
All the kills.
Playing 10-1 as of the first 3 rounds, of course, that we've seen play out here so far. Joom going to look for another one here as he's been promoted a little bit. Onto the Nook now and try and see what else he can work towards as that first pickup has already been found. Eliminate Sile again. In terms of early picks, Heroic are not finding the best targets necessarily in terms of utility elimination, but when you look at it in the overall scope, there really isn't any targets they can knock out here and make a massive effective kill on in terms of removing utility from the defenders. You could say that sort of for Good Boy in terms of the Azami, but most of this utility is going to be pre-placed at the beginning of the round anyway.
Well, middle of the round now here. Heroic slowing things down a bit, but as soon as I say that, a gunfight here with Static, that he cannot win up against Joom. The Deagle out, he knows that he tagged Static up, and in fact, Static 1 HP at the current moment. Heroic majority control on this top floor, but they've done a good job of contesting around the site as well. You can see Uno's gotten the wall open, and he's dancing with death right now as Envy Taylor attempting to hold down the breach here for detention. It's going to be Good Boy that strikes out actually here as he'll take down the Heroic member. SANDBOX ahead here for the very first time.
Jube trying to move himself forward. Good boy as well. With the shots being leaned into this one. Here's where the benefit of a zombie comes in, though. Free barricades to be able to chuck back up there for Good Boy. Although I do believe that that is going to be the last one he will have for this round. The benefit of the Azami now fades away a little bit, but just in time as well. 45 seconds remaining. Heroic are going to be forced to make a play. And unfortunately, they don't have a whole lot of map control to contribute to this type of play. Mello, he was paying attention, will have heard that frost mat going down onto the ground. He won't know the exact position of it, but can make a decent assumption. However, Joom once again striking true here with the second pickup. Will he be able to catch Good Boy around the corner? He doesn't even know he's there. No, Joom is absolutely thrashing SANDBOX right now. Another triple. He will finally go down, but Mello now making up for the difference as well by picking up the trade against Arukaze. Static as well from the damage he suffered earlier, but oh no! The frost mat in the back is going to be grabbing Benja, so the support for Mello now gone by the wayside. It's all onto him here in the 1v1 versus Static, but at the same time, just one single shot needs to be hit by Mello to knock this one out and put another round on the board for Heroic. The swing hasn't come in just yet. Mello playing this perfectly and shuts down the final 1v1 to give yet another round over towards Heroic. That's starting down from 4v5 as well. Nice recovery yet again from this roster.
Very well done, and it seems to be the Joom factor. Joom finally hitting.
What's he got, like 11 now, I think?
Yeah, he's got 11 frags right now. Just true 12.
12.
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
technically speaking, we can really give him that last one to Static as well, because he got Static to that sliver's worth of HP, which made it to where Static literally couldn't play the game. He just proned out and tried to eventually get the Heroic member to swing on him, but we ended up seeing how that went as Mello won out the rest of the round. Heroic only need 2 members and really only 1 to get a foothold on this building.
Yeah, June with an average of 4 kills per round at the moment here. Very, very impressive stuff. We'll have to see just how far this train will go before it's finally come to a halt, even if they will come to a halt. Heroic is on the run right now, and it does not necessarily seem like there is a lot that is going to stop them. However, SANDBOX have been getting better at the minimum, keeping an even fight going with Heroic, and that last round was a true testament to that. Definitely bring it down to a clutch moment, but it really seemed like Heroic still had the control at the end of the day after the entry power was shown once again from Joom. Similar operator lineup coming in as now we can see the return, of course, to this top floor here, so we're going to see it play very, very gadget heavy from SANDBOX yet again to try and waste as much time from Heroic as possible. Problem is this has obviously not worked for the previous 3 rounds, so we're going to have to see if they try to change anything up this time to improve this defensive strat.
Well, Sam Fisher, 0 working his way in onto Uno. Mello going to get tagged up from the rifle of Static as he was holding on to the break door. Static will actually get Joom, a big pickup here finally for SANDBOX. They have a boon, and well, for Heroic, they might actually have some more kills across the board depending on how the rest of this round goes. We'll have to see, but for Uno, he's at least gotten one of his cameras out, so be able to assist here. You can see him looking over his teammate there and his screen right next to him. That's the beauty of LAN. You can kind of use the screens right next to you, see what your teammates are looking at, and potentially line up some frags because of it.
Yep, absolutely the case, and of course other benefits too, but it's definitely good to be here on LAN, playing into these situations and being able to communicate directly with your teammates, and as Luke said, even peek off of them when it may become appropriate here. Things moving a little bit more slowly this time for Heroic due to the loss of Joom early on here. Finally, the hero has fallen. So the rest of Heroic need to make up for the difference here, and we'll have to see how exactly they can do it. So there's even an aggressive lean coming out right now from a member of SANDBOX. I believe that's Envy Taylor trying to play things out from the inside of security, looking to catch any aggression that may be trying to work itself towards the west main area. But obviously, as you guys can tell, Heroic is not prioritizing that right now. They've gone onto the inside of Passport here, and are going to try to move themselves further deeper into customs area as well. Sahil wants to put a stop to this one. He's waiting over here by main lobby. Try and catch this himself. The drone will suss him out, sending him further back. Thankfully, he's on the Oryx, so... Oh! Hey, thankfully, he's on the Oryx. That's not helping him out much right here. Has to blast through the wall just to be able to get himself to the hatch, where, thankfully, the benefit of his character comes in, and he can hop right back up to the relative safety of the site hold.
Well, SANDBOX is the best opportunity you've had for a round this entire time, for the most part. Heroic, they've been running amok of things, and specifically Joom, and since he's down, it's going to be up to the rest of the unit to try and solve this puzzle. SANDBOX has some solid positioning across this top floor, evenly spread, still holding on to security and Static with some great help here. What a read onto Mello as he tries to cross through and attempts to take security. Benja looking to work his way through here. They're going to try and both go for this top floor. Love this take attempt as Benja will get the refrag and the follow-up as he's trying his damnedest to to take out the rest of SANDBOX, and really it's going to all be up to him. He'll get 2, but there's a potential for 3 more kills. Heroic, it can't get on the same page when it comes to team play, but they've had these heroic moments where these players can roll through and just take out a multitude of SANDBOX members. It won't happen this round, and SANDBOX will eventually get there first.
Much better performance in the early and mid-round that time from SANDBOX, keeping their presence a lot less obvious to Heroic. Successfully knocking out Joom, obviously, I think is actually a pretty big part of it, as he's been second to none on the entry game for Heroic so far. That definitely slowed down the confidence from Heroic, and it seemed like, despite the fact that we had 0 in play, Heroic definitely didn't seem like they had all the intel necessary before going into that site in the final moments of it. Respect the play, it actually worked out pretty well given the circumstances, that final push they tried to make over there towards Beepers, but yeah, just didn't really have the intel necessary and was shooting blind into that site, down a few players as well, and as a result of that, it goes pretty much the way you expect into SANDBOX's hands finally to put them onto the board here.
Yeah, the first time that we've seen Heroic grasping at straws in this game, you know, just trying to find any positioning from SANDBOX, and it was really just the crossfires that got them into trouble. Just great strategy from SANDBOX. The delay into the setup for, you know, the late round, just solid across the board. So we'll see if they can try and recreate that, replicate it here for round 5. And actually, we're going to have an operator that we don't get to see quite often. They've gotten played like once or twice in NA, but we haven't seen that much out of Sense, have we?
They really haven't worked out that well is the big issue here.
No, they haven't.
That utility tends to be pretty tough to control, so we'll see if Heroic is able to get a better grasp on things.
Now, they are getting a buff, so that's pretty sick. So we'll see how that works out for them. You know, they're actually going to get buffed up to 3 speeds, actually. That's what we're going to get out of Sense, so that they're able to capitalize on their utility a little bit more often. So we'll see how that works out for them. Either way, though, Uno's going to keep them in for this one. See if they can potentially get the projectors to work out for them. It is going to be a Teller's Bathroom offense. Some defensive positioning up top for SANDBOX, but mostly down low as of what we're seeing right now. We are going to have those 2 bodies up in Mini as well as Office, and then kind of a rotation or just kind of a flex position here by NV Taylor over inside of security. You're usually looking to see if somebody wants to try and hop in stock or maybe go through detention by themselves or something like that. Always good to just have a body there, even for info.
Sahil going to look for opportunities to impact here, but it seems like he's been revealed a bit too early. NV Taylor will be the one that's actually caught out on the mute, however, by Benja, who's now picking up a lot of the entry power here, it seems, as at the tail end of the previous round, and this one as well. Another one struck truly. Grizzly able to knock out Static as well. SANDBOX's defense just not set up properly to fend off the entry from Heroic here. So it all comes down to Goodboy and Arukaze. We can see Arukaze down below trying to fire out these shots. Goodboy will at least get the exchange and the death from his teammate, but it's all gone too far here now. Goodboy alone inside of the 1v4. They're just trying to play things out. Thankfully, he does have the bottom floor to hold here, but he has no idea where the actual assault's going to leap down from, and that's the big issue here. He doesn't know where to expect the next attack, so he has to constantly roam around, more than likely making his position quite obvious to the players on Heroic and just making it a manhunt to end this round now.
Yeah, Heroic outclassing the SANDBOX with their drone game. A lot of really aggressive positioning from SBX there that got them into trouble because Heroic was doing such a good job of droning out those positions up top. Border's a very small map. It doesn't take a long time to roll those drones through there. So, like that move that we saw to the half wall upstairs, pretty ill-advised when you're trying to go for that swing. If you swing out, you don't really see anything there on the box wall you can get. You might want to hightail it out of there instead of putting yourself in a position where they can just hold your cross from the door if they get any information at all. So, SANDBOX just kind of giving the goods over to Heroic in a certain sense there. So we'll see if they can bounce back. It's really been on these opening picks where SANDBOX has been able to attempt to hit their stride, but we've seen how lethal Heroic is in that category, and specifically Joom. He's been lights out. Didn't have to have his number called up that last round. Some drone game, some hollow game, but nothing coming with the G36C.
Props to Heroic, by the way, for quickly adjusting to what, in my opinion, was the big issue back on round number 4. Did seem like they were in a real lack for intel, especially after Joom had gotten picked early. There was definitely some confidence issues too, but that played a lot less heavily into the round, and they immediately fixed that on the previous round for number 5. You mentioned those drones just buzzing around everywhere. Had complete intel onto SANDBOX's setup, and we saw a very successful entry, contribute to that, as we saw them able to carve their way through most of round 5 without too much of a problem.
Yes, indeed. Well, Heroic Gonna be changing some things up here yet again. Uno has been dedicated to hard breach pretty often, but in the common day of Rainbow Six Siege, that's a whole different meaning, isn't it, John? Nowadays we have secondary hard breach, we've got secondary EMPs. We just have so much utility that you can access from a myriad of different operators, and this is going to be one of them. Capitao now having access to the secondary hard breach. He has for some time, but we've seen him get more and more use as time has continued on. Mostly because of his tactical bolts as well. Those fire bolts are very good at forcing positions to well, not be abused by the defense. Static getting a little bit of abuse of his own. Some flashes out here from Mello to try and help out with the situation. And in fact, the situation, well, it's going to get even hotter for SANDBOX. A nice nitro cell will finally go bound for Mello to take him out as it sails over the top of the archive shelves. Joom and the rest of Heroic looking to fight for this top floor.
The one-to-one exchange so far, it's been a very common story we've seen played out through most of this half. We're going to see it one final time on round number 6 here as Heroic tries to lock in a 5-1 definitive scoreline for themselves. So far looking to be in a good position to line that up. Uno with another one going in against Static, knocks him down, puts it into a 4v3 scenario now. Envy Taylor, Good Boy, and Urkaze are what remains for the SANDBOX roster. And again, playing things vertically, that was the upstairs team that has now been taken down. It all falls to the anchors and the off-site rotators here to be able to contribute to the rest of the defense and still put up a successful round for the SANDBOX roster. Heroic will take a moment for themselves, of course. With these 2 picks being found, they need to set up their own top-down angles, be able to negotiate a position to execute into the site.
I'm having flashbacks to when we saw Joom have a pretty creative round where he hopped out on the balcony and was able to toss a nicely cooked grenade in to prevent the defuse of the planter. See if Heroic goes about this in a similar fashion. SANDBOX definitely is, as they're holding practically the same positions as we saw the last time in the previous round of this. Envy Taylor's going to be holding the bottom of Metal. Uno, he's going to send in the tactical smokes and drop down. There was a frost mat right to the side of his foot, but he's not going to step into it. Instead, plants inside of the smoke. Envy Taylor is going to get Joom upstairs, so now this round completely open as this case goes down. A 3 versus 3, but slight edge to Heroic based off the positioning and the way that they can potentially hold on to this case.
Envy Taylor making up the difference upstairs, though, making this way too tricky for Heroic. They just iron sight in onto that case position and focus purely on that to make sure it doesn't get retaken. They cannot contribute to that anymore as Envy Taylor is causing too many problems upstairs here. Grizzly with the play, though, finally shuts it down for Envy, leaving it all onto Urkaze, who will also be shut up by the lone hold downstairs. The planter in Uno successfully shuts down the round, and it is that 5-1 half for Heroic.
And that is why we see the Capitao there from Uno. What a read from him. He uses those tactical smokes to go across the room in the bathroom to that little corner, that little crook or cranny, and slap that case down there instead. Moving the case inside of the same site, John, that means a lot as well, because if he goes to that same position, right, he doesn't plant inside the shower, he goes right outside and plants on that soft wall, he probably dies. SANDBOX knows where that case was the last time around. They probably pre-fire it heavily again, and more than likely frag him out. So again, just a really, really solid idea there from Uno to make sure he gets that case down successfully.
And so the sides will now flip. Heroic goes over to the defensive end of Border, and SANDBOX will take on the attacking side instead. Let's see if things will go as swimmingly for the Heroic roster, or if SANDBOX as well might get a little bit of steam behind their train. They try to move things into the second half. Regardless, it is going to be a tough ask of SANDBOX to be able to bring this back from the brink here now. 4 rounds behind, only 1 picked up in the previous half, and just a single one from Heroic already puts them on to match point, which would require SANDBOX's run to be perfect from that point forward. Heroic only going to go for the half reinforcement, looks like, here on West Main as well, so that will make things a little bit more troublesome for SANDBOX to approach it, potentially easier to access the site if they can clear out the hold on the front end of lockers, however, just due to the fact that, of course, the wall is already open for them.
All right, well, we talked quite a bit about Joom and kind of some of his rounds yesterday where he was able to really put them together and collect practically all of the kills. Well, that's how this game starts here today, John. And that's really all they needed. They needed a hot start out of Joom. He got 12 kills and then droned and used his utility for the rest of it. And his team really came to life to close out that offensive half, switching them over to defense. So see if Joom can continue to add to this, kill kill bank that he's got currently, 12 frags. So pretty disgusting stuff from him. But luckily enough for the rest of Heroic, he's happily gifted some frags over to them. So the leaderboard looks a little bit better, at the current moment. About a minute in here now for round 7. SANDBOX having a little bit of a different idea as to what their offensive lineup should be looking like in comparison to what Heroic is bringing for their utility.
Mello going to get picked here nice and early at the start of the round, just about a minute deep into it here. He has found out, trying to get adventurous and peeking out against this play. Joom has better luck. A second player, however, is nearly caught on the run out. I believe there's either Uno or Grizzly trying to make a little run out there at the same position that Mello had gone down in, but that kill is traded regardless. Now we see Good Boy eliminated here. The Yata removed from play, and Joom does it once again. The dash towards the window. A Sael is now also taken out.
Well, Joom back on the leaderboard here with 2 kills, which means that potentially in for a Joom ace again. But no, Ben just got something to say about that. Arakuzi will get taken down, and SANDBOX worse for wear because of it. 2 versus 4 with a minute remaining. And John, they still have so many EE1Ds to their name, but they're not using them. They're just walking into the building, and they're getting sawed in half. MB Taylor, he'll be able to take down Benja. Nice alt walk there to be able to stay quiet and unsuspected by his opponent. But now Joom likely going to be found here. But actually, I believe he's got a mute jammer around, so he's not going to get EE1D'd. He will know that Envy is close. Let's see if he reads this approach. He won't swing off of the 90 corridor there. Instead, playing the bookshelves. He's going to move out here into the horseshoe of security. Break room, still where Envy sits. Wasting so much time at the current moment. This is a very solid job here from Heroic, especially for Joom, not overplaying his hand upstairs, not dying, just forcing him to try and make some decisions that wouldn't exactly be the best. Uno, he's gonna have to switch over to that pistol. Nitro Cell out, and it gets it done. Oh, it's Joom instead!
It buys time for Joom to bail him out is what it does.
That is absolutely ludicrous, Joom.
Joom is on a massive run right now and may very well be the singular thing that makes this match end just as quickly as it has been so far here. 6-1 is the current scoreline, and there's no real reason at this point we would suspect Heroic to have much of an issue claiming that 7th round here. It's been a near flawless run for them so far. SANDBOX, they've been putting up a fight, that's to be sure, but Heroic has been too omnipotent in clearing out these issues and, more importantly, taking control of the round when everything is said and done. Even when they started out with a little bit of a deficit, they've been able to bring it back under their own control more times than once, and it's for the most part because of that player on top of the scoreboard right now. Joom absolutely destroying it at plus 11 right now, 15-4 overall on the scoreboard.
Just a wild game from Joom, from start to finish. You know, doing everything necessary for Heroic to find success in this game, and that's why this score is what it is, 6-1. You know, and it's not like he's being overbearing with his teammates either. He's just capitalizing on every situation that is presented to him. And I mean, I don't know if you could ask more out of him in this game. It's been truly incredible stuff. SANDBOX is going to use their tactical timeout. Don't really know what that's worth at a 1-to-6 ratio, but I mean, we're going to find out, aren't we? SANDBOX still have a chance to get back into this. The leaderboard not exactly in the best of straight. Sael 0-6 and on to the Ash. We've defaulted out here to try and get a frag on the board. And speaking of frag, Static before this game actually had the least on SANDBOX. I do believe he was tied for the second least at the tournament as well, with only 9 kills yesterday. But gotten some more on the board here today with 6 frags in his first game.
Sael having a bit of a rough game too, considering the position that he's trying to put himself into on the attacking side right now. 0 kills in this game. Does have an assist from an earlier round, but onto the Ash as well. You expect a bit more proficiency in the fragging department just because of the weapon kit that she has to work with. Coming into this one, obviously, for a little bit more of a soft breach support, but we have started to see Ash come in more and more, and obviously she's still going to have those aggressive tendencies swinging in behind her still, so definitely be nice to see that go on to a more confident player, but it's the way the dice have been rolled for this round. Heroic looking to shut things down with one final closeout. They will go, of course, this hold downstairs. Instead, they'll go for the jail site and see if this will yield results for them as they try to claim their final round.
I just can't help but stare at Joom's positioning all the time at the current moment. I'm just waiting for him to get into a gunfight. Oh, what a smart play from SANDBOX there. If you didn't know, the exothermic charges actually have quite a bit of a hitbox, so you can do some pretty interesting stuff, like if a soft wall meets up with a hard wall, you can just put on the soft wall and blow up the wall, or, I don't know, maybe a wooden barricade will get things done too.
Now, to be fair, there's a pretty big risk in doing it right there on the wooden barricade. If there is anyone playing near the passport door right there and they see that going on, just like one shot and boom, there goes half your utility in hard breach. But might as well try it out there, as obviously they droned it for themselves too, probably before actually going for that, and affirmed that there was no one in the area.
Oh yeah, following that line of thinking, they'd probably just shoot thermite through the wooden barricade when you go to put it on, because exothermic is so unbelievably loud. When
so it is pretty risky then.
Yeah, so definitely drone that before they ended up going in there, because that would have been a heck of a blunder if they did not. Drones out now for SANDBOX to try and see what's going on over inside of the office area. It's going to be in through radio window, and potentially an Envy Taylor flying in through there as well.
Let's see Uno and the rest of Heroic here. Still waiting, playing a very patient game so far. Not leaned out too aggressively either. Obviously extended setups going into the upstairs portion of the map, but these are to be expected on a site hold like this downstairs in Customs. Away from that, these players are more than set up to quickly rotate back down if the situation gets a little bit too hot for them. So overall, playing things nice and passively, and Benja once again contributing very, very nice. You're starting to compete with Joom a little bit on the scoreboard. Not going to be able to catch up to him realistically, though. He just got his 10th right there with that pickup against Envy Taylor.
It looks like Envy Taylor ended up rotating around to the main door of office, and that allowed Heroic to move back towards radio window and get another kill onto static, but Harukaze is going to start the plant up. He's dead to rights now, though, case down inside of sight, and this is looking like this is it for SANDBOX. 1-6 Heroic, one round away from map point, and SANDBOX Gaming down 2-4 right now. All quiet across the board, some press shots going off, but SANDBOX, they haven't been able to find a singular person. A frag grenade goes out. It does a lot of damage, but it won't kill Benja at all. Joom's going to wrap this one up with a bow, and I do believe that's 17 kills for him in this game. That is a 7-1 victory. 16 kills in an 8-round game. That's a KPR of 2, which is disgusting, by the way. That is gross.
Definitive game for Joom and the rest of Heroic here as they put their best, and that's a really best foot forward here, and absolutely shut down SANDBOX in their first win of the tournament. We're going to go to a short break, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be back in a few minutes to break this one down.
I'm Nicholas Morton, but you know me as Pingu. I'm a 2-time Rainbow Six Siege World Champion and former top Rainbow Six Siege player in Pro League. Welcome to my Siege Ranked Bootcamp. We're talking 20 seconds left on the clock, you got the diffuser in hand, what do? Play the way that you're comfortable with, because you have confidence when you're in this position. That is when you're gonna be at your very best. Good luck.
Welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen, to the Bravo stream. Game here is all wrapped up, so if you're looking for gameplay at the immediate moment, that's going to be over on our primary stream. We're just breaking things down for what we just saw between Heroic and SANDBOX. Over on the A stream, we still have Team Liquid going up against TSM, and it is quite the matchup. It is currently tied, so make sure you are checking that out. We'll be joining them in just a few minutes when we've wrapped things up here. But let's talk a little bit about the game we just watched. Domination from Heroic, right?
Well, domination from one man and one man alone. Joom, I think he met up with Gordon Ramsay or something, because he presented a masterclass in this game, especially on the entries for his offensive side. Truly disgusting stuff. Starting off with an ace, 4 kills in the very follow-up round, so 9 kills in 2 rounds, and that was also a clutch to keep that plant down. So fantastic stuff from him, and really great game from Heroic. Really love what we saw in some of the later rounds, where it was a little bit more about the overall team. You know, I love seeing Joom pop off, but I also love seeing some very solid teamwork.
That's a great point. Like, Uno kind of quietly contributing very nicely to this team as well here. A lot of assists coming in the course of that one, where he just like wasn't able to finish off players due to him holding these kind of longer angles, and someone else later in the round did it for him. There's some great stuff for him. And then Benja absolutely slaying it on entry as well when Jume wasn't there. So a really just definitive game overall from the Heroic roster, showing that, yeah, we may have had a bad day one going up against those really tough teams, but we are definitely here. We can definitely compete against some of the other squads, and we are ready for that second go-round against TSM and Liquid a little bit later on in the tournament.
Now, looking right across the fence and looking at SANDBOX, how do you bounce back from this?
It's tough, right? Again, day one, you thought to yourself, okay, we're going to go back, we're going to re-strategize, and hopefully be able to rebound the next day, and then you come immediately into that next day and have a 1-7 result like that as well, where you're just getting shut down by one player, you know, time after time, round after round again there. So let's see the stats once more on the screen for those of you who are curious how things are going. But yeah, going back to the main point for SANDBOX, again, it needs to go back to the drawing board. This is one of those games where almost you kind of need to forget things and just quickly mentally reset, get ready for your next matchup. As we talked about in the pregame, it's pretty much do or die from SANDBOX here. Losing that game, I think, puts them at about a 6 or 3% chance to qualify now. So they need to really, really hope that every game from this point forward goes nearly perfectly. And then as well, some of their opponents have pitfalls that they end up tripping into here over the next few days.
Yeah, when it comes to our group stages, it's pretty hot and heavy, and I mean, you can end up on the bad end of the stick pretty quickly here. Let's slap the Group B results up in front of your eyeballs. Remember, Team Liquid and TSM are currently facing off on the Alpha stream. We're going to send you guys over there in just a moment. So if you like things and what's going on over here on the B stream, don't go anywhere. We'll make sure that you have your action. But yeah, Heroic obviously finally getting some points on the board here and have an opportunity still to try and make it into playoffs.
And Heroic now kind of patiently waiting to see the result, of course, of TSM versus Liquid, as that will pick the next matchup that they really need to prioritize. They need to pick the big winners. They'll need to deny those points to try and eclipse whichever team ends up in second place at the tail end of that matchup. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we still have that game between TSM and Team Liquid going on over on the Alpha stream. So let's go ahead and watch as they try to finish things up.